I'm Lindsay Smith with RealAgriculture.com. I'm joined today by Faith Matchett with FCC, based out of New Brunswick.
True enough.
Welcome here, Faith.
Thank you.
We are we're in Ottawa.
We are.
Welcome to my hometown at the Canadian Young Farmers Forum, the AGM, and
Yes.
you just spoke on an amazing array of topics on best management practices.
Thank you.
One that really stuck with me and a lot of people was the importance of branding your farm.
Yes.
What does that even mean?
Well, it's an opportunity. We all have a brand. The question is, do we intentionally have a brand or not? So the opportunity that we actually featured a video on this topic, the opportunity is to intentionally brand your company, brand your farm. And so set expectations with suppliers or potential employees or existing employees as to what your business represents, what your business is about.
So another word for brand then is sort of your reputation.
Well, that's actually it. By establishing an intentional brand, you really are, in other words, doing I would call risk mitigation on the brand that you're going to get when you don't do an intentional one. So for sure, it's a form of risk management.
So what are some of the parts of a brand? So it's not just a logo, but maybe it includes a logo.
Could be a logo. It could be the way you feature your vehicles. It could be the way you have uniforms or don't have uniforms. It could be your website, your blog. It's the way you represent yourself in the business, in the community where you live, and it's the way you represent yourself with suppliers, future employees, existing employees, all of the above.
So, and that brings us into sort of one of the next areas, because of course you highlighted many areas that farmers can be working best management practices into their farm, and HR is one of those, and especially when we're talking family businesses. Yeah, what are some of the key steps that farmers can be taking to integrate more HR?
Right. So, I mean, I really think a best practice of the business is to have a fundamental HR plan in place. And so that means you need to have goal docs. That means you need to have expectations set for people, whether they're your staff, outside hires, or whether they're family. I think there needs to be conversations that are held reasonably often on how things are going, not just when things aren't going well, but when things not going well, when they are going well. So those regular kind of conversations that we tend to think should happen in a business where there's lots of outside staff or even lots of staff. I think that needs to exist in a smaller operation, a medium-sized operation, and also when only all family are the staff.
Now, well, and of course, who doesn't love to sit their family down and tell them what they could do better?
Well, I think you have to be respectful, though, and I think you have to assume that your family doesn't read your mind, which I think is what we tend to think. And so that's why, doing a clear org chart, understanding who's accountable for doing what are the expectations, how is that going? I think those are all conversations that should happen, at least on a semi-annual basis, to just manage the relationship that you have with your staff, even with their family.
And one last point, you use the example of someone who likes having new staff come on board because they ask a lot of why.
Yes.
So what's the importance of asking why, and what do you ask why of?
Well, I love when we get new staff because they come in with what I call fresh eyes. And so I say to them, they can be just like a 2-year-old. Why? I think that is a huge opportunity for a business because they can say, why do we do it this way? Why do we do it that way? Why do we follow this process? Why do we use this form? And I think that's a huge opportunity on any business to get staff, to empower staff to say, ask the question. And as a leader or a manager to also be inclined to answer it truthfully as opposed to saying, well, because we always have. Think, well, why do we do it that way anyway? And just because it was the right thing to do 5 years ago or 10 years ago or 2 years ago doesn't mean it's not something you could reconsider in the moment.
And I suppose that does bring up maybe the last point, though, is that you have to be open to that change.
Yes.
Recognizing that if you ask the why, you may not like the answer.
Yes, and also sometimes just because someone asks the why, you may think it needs to exist. They may not think the process or the form or whatever needs to exist, but you have to be able to do a good enough job, I would say, of articulating the reason, what this manages, why this was established and what it manages. And I think sometimes people find that a bit frustrating because it takes time to do that. But that's what working with people successfully is, and that ultimately will drive innovation, because if people are asking the why, that gives you the opportunity to say, oh, that's good. What's that? Good question. Why are we doing it that way? Maybe we should change it.
Wonderful. Okay, thank you so much, Faith.
My pleasure. Thanks.